You are listening to the enhanced edition of the Jeff Rubin Show. When you hear this sound, a picture will appear on your device. Enjoy!
Welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, joined this week by Justin Tyler, comedian, host of Comic Book Club. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you for having me.
And obviously, I shouldn't even have to explain this, but we are here this week to talk about the Avengers.
Oh, yeah. The film.
The movie The Avengers.
Emma Peel?
And we are going to... that movie was called The Avengers when it came out,
It was.
Right?
And I don't know if in the Avengers that just came out, like it said Marvels in little teeny letters on the title screen. I was like, nice.
They don't want anyone to get confused. Like,
Yeah.
they rent the DVD and they're like, I don't remember the Weather Wizard being... That's Sean Connery in The Avengers, right?
Right, yeah, it was. What a terrible movie.
But we are going to assume that everyone listening to this has seen The Avengers, because my understanding is by the end of the weekend that should be the case.
Yeah, any real, you're out there, you're seeing, especially if you're listening to this, because we're going to get into it.
So
as deep as possible.
This is going to get spoilery. I mean, it's also like, I guess the spoilers for this movie are just like details of events that happen, because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know who all the characters are. No one's going to die. You know, it's going to be...
well...
Okay. Oh, yeah, well, I guess we can talk about it, but...
I know, it's free. It's a free zone. Everyone be yourself.
So, The Avengers, if you haven't seen it yet, we already spoiled a little bit of it, so now is your chance to really stop listening. Okay, here we go. What'd you think of The Avengers?
I've seen it twice now.
And this is sad. We're recording this on Saturday. It came out last night. You saw a screening.
I saw an early screening, and then I went to a movie theater last night and saw it. And I gotta say, best comic book movie of all time.
The one that everyone's gonna bring up is Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, of course. And I will say, it's not like I forgot about that one. Like, I think it is better. I think it is better than Dark Knight. It's more comic booky than Dark Knight. It's much more fun than Dark Knight, I think.
It is definitely more fun than Dark Knight. It's weird to say one's better than the other, because they're like obviously so different. Like, the only thing they have in common is that they're both based on comic books.
And it's sort of like comparing Marvel and DC. It's like being like, well, Marvel's always better. It's like, no, it's just not the case. They are different. They're just very different. And I just enjoyed seeing the Avengers more. I will admit, talking about personality spoilers, emotional spoilers, I shed a tear the second time, not the first time.
When did you shed that tear?
Well, I don't know if we want to get into it too much, but just like...
You want to get into it.
Yeah, in one of the... Like, in just the action sequences when he goes Hulk, smash, I was like... it was just like a geek tear. It was like a squirt of geek gland.
The guy in front of me when I saw the movie was wearing an Captain America hat. It might have had all of them. It might have been an Iron Man hat. I'm not sure. And... he was clapping when everyone showed up, and it didn't bother me at all. Like, it was like getting me more into the movie. And then when Hulk showed up, he threw his hands into the air. It was like and it wasn't for show for anyone. Like, I think he was immediately embarrassed by himself. But it was just this genuine childlike reaction of throwing his hands in the air of excitement.
Well, and I think that's what makes this movie like the best. It's like the excitement and the way it builds just is so like it gets everyone caught up. Like, I saw it in on Court Street in Brooklyn. It's one of those movie theaters where everyone talks during the whole thing. And during any movie that goes on there, people were like, no one was interrupting, no one was making jokes. People were just generally screaming with excitement whenever something from the last hour of the movie.
Yeah, the movie really plays you. Like, you feel
like crazy.
I was also in front of a kid. Also, generally very annoying. But when you're seeing, like, The Avengers, you can't really get mad when there's a kid there.
Hey, get out of here.
This is for us. This is an adult movie.
I earned this through 20 years of comic book nerddom.
And the scene when Hawkeye is good again, he was like, oh, he's a good guy. The kid just outwardly said, oh, he's good now. And I was like, this movie is really just like, there's no, it's really playing you. Like, the tone and everything really sets you up. The Hulk's appearance is like really teased, and there's so many people that have to enter dramatically, and the Hulk is really teased the whole movie so that when he finally does show up, probably about halfway through, it's very, very exciting.
Well, and even though I think the second appearance of the Hulk is the one where it's like, Oh yes, when he comes back after the first the
and he comes back on a little motorcycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something I didn't understand about the film, and I'm hoping you can help me with. Obviously, I loved it. It was amazing. There was a pretty major plot point I couldn't wrap my head around, which was why was the Hulk good the second time he comes back on the motorcycle? Why is he able to control it and basically be a productive member of the team at that point?
Well, in the comics, like Hulk, I mean, for years he's been just sort of the Hulk. There hasn't been Bruce Banner. Then they sort of go back and forth, and they've been playing a little bit like for a long time the Hulk was smart and Bruce Banner was dumb. When he would turn back into Bruce Banner, so they keep teasing the formula, sort of. But in this movie, I think they did a good job actually when he's like, "I'm angry. My secret is to be angry all the time," which I thought was so cool.
Yeah, that was a cool line.
And so I think the in the first time he turns, it's because of Loki's influence when it's sort of like out of control anger. And it builds up, and he loses control. But then I think the second time, that's sort of now the new status quo for the Hulk, where he's like, "I'm gonna Hulk out, and it's gonna be bad." And like I love the way they set up him catching Iron Man falling. Like
so the crowd pandemonium when that happened.
Yeah,
and it's seen in the trailer 100 times.
No, I know.
And it's like the last thing that happens in the movie. So I knew it was coming, but it was still so good.
Well, especially they're like, "Oh, he's falling. What's going to happen?" And I was like, "I know now because I saw the trailer."
Yeah,
but even so, even though your brain is like, "Don't get wound up. He's going to catch him." And then when he does it, it's still like, "Oh, yes, he did it."
I mean, well, the thing about that moment is you think Thor is going to save him because he's the other one that can fly. Yeah. And they even you think that, and then you even have a second where they show Thor winding up, and you're like, all right, here we go. So, and you know Iron Man's not going to, like, fall and get killed. Yeah. You know there's Iron Man 3 is coming.
Yeah.
But Thor, I don't know, then the Hulk comes and gets him, and it's like, it's almost the last action-y moment in the movie. And,
and Thor's, like, I don't know how Thor would have, like, the way he flies is he throws the hammer and then just holds on.
Right.
So, like, I don't know how, it's like shooting a gun and being like, catch that grape I just dropped. Bang. Doesn't work that way. I don't know how that, physically, that would have worked out.
Also, I had a lot of concern for Iron Man inside that suit. You know, people talk about, like, Lois should have exploded when Superman catches her because he's, like, going the opposite way.
Right.
I mean, this is even worse. Like, Iron Man's falling from another dimension, and the Hulk, like, kind of just sideswipes him. I don't know what's going on inside. I had a lot of concern for Tony inside that suit.
Well, he just cradles it. He just cradles Iron Man. Like in the Mighty Ducks, we learned that you can stop an egg with a hockey stick if you just cradle it.
I'm sure on the Wikipedia page, they're like, the Mark 7 suit contains gyros that reverse the velocity. I'm sure someone has addressed this.
Yeah, vibranium. Anytime you say vibranium, it sort of makes sense of all that shit.
The other plot point, I want to get some nitpicking out of the way. The other plot point I didn't totally understand is, which the kid behind me did, is when Hawkman became a good guy again. It was just like he was
Hawkeye.
What did I say?
Hawkman.
I'm sorry.
I wish it was Hawkman.
Oh my
just
God, I'm so sorry. Hawkeye, he's under the influence of Loki, and then he just kind of gets conked upside the head, and then he like wakes up and he's like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
And like there's just some like trippy camera effects, and then they fade away, and you're like, I guess he's okay now.
They do say Black Widow's like, they're like, how'd you fix him? And she's like, and she uses a technical term, and then she's like, yeah, I just knocked his head around.
Yeah.
It's like reoriented his blah, blah, blah.
There's some like sloppiness like that, like Stellan Skarsgård becoming okay again, and he's like, oh, but I think I had some control, and the scepter can stop all of this. It'll undo everything. But the movie's so good it doesn't matter.
Well, and I think that is... And I, like, you know, especially watching a second time, I was like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And, like, a lot of the stuff in the first half where it's, like, Tesseract and why and how, and it's just like, why does it, when he touches them in the heart, why does it give him the euphoric state? Like, they never, and then it's like, oh, it's a portal. But also it makes you believe in this ultimate truth that, no, is also never explained.
That was kind of interesting, the idea they were, like, happier when they were under that.
But I think that's very comic booky. That's something that, happens in comic books all the time where they're like, oh, he's bad right now, but he'll be good later, don't worry. And don't worry why. Like, as soon as the scepter's gone, he's going to be fine.
So let's break this movie down. The only way I can think of doing it, character by character, all 24 of them. I wish there were. I'm kidding. You know, I was kind of concerned, and I said this before, I think, on the show, that just mathematically they weren't going to have time for all these characters. But everyone really got their due. Everyone got at least one applause-worthy moment. Even Black Widow. Let's start with her.
I think that's the most amazing thing about the movie, that they sort of cover all the bases and it doesn't ever fall apart and feel like, oh, let's go catch up with Black Widow. Boring.
Yeah, that's a great point. Black Widow, probably the character I was most skeptical about, not because I'm some comic book misogynist and
Yeah,
I'm like,
you hate
female
women.
characters can't be cool.
There are only so many women in comics, so don't hate them too hard.
But I did not like Iron Man 2 very much. Iron Man 2, even especially years later, but I remember weeks after seeing it, I was like, I don't remember what happened in that movie. I was thinking about it last night. I was like, who was the villain? And someone was like, Mickey Rourke. And I was thinking, oh my God, I forgot entirely. And she was kind of, that was not a great movie, and she was not great in that movie. So I was a little skeptical that she could elbow her way in to the Avengers.
And she was such a prominent part and sort of like an organizer of the whole thing.
Well, the thing is, she doesn't have any superpowers, so she's got to do something.
Well, she has little stinger wrist bands, which you see her use a few times in the movie.
Well, the thing is, like, Thor is right next to her. He's literally like a Norse god, and she's firing like dual pistols.
I know, tiny little like Dillingers, like, and I was like, she uses those for a second, then it's empty. It's like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
You're gonna run out of ammo there. But I thought she was good, and I had a feeling she was gonna save the day again because she has no superpowers, that she'd be the one to like kind of sneak in and figure it out, which she does with Stellan Skarsgård.
And that was cool. The way she gets, the way she jumps up and gets the thing, like that's sort of a superpower. She's her being like totally bored all the time, I think is sort of her superpower. She's just so like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fun. I'll go do this.
She had a good scene with Loki, I thought, when the reverse interrogation was an interesting thing for that character.
Yeah, the balance of that first interrogation with the Russian general, which was fun and funny, and then that was great because it was still a surprise, even though she did it in her first scene.
Right.
And then she plays Loki in the same way. It was like, and I didn't see it coming, and I was like, oh, awesome. I thought they were setting up some romance with Hawkeye and blah blah blah, but instead it was just this like a well done, well written scene.
Yeah. Still, I don't see her getting a spin-off.
Yeah, tough. She's just not like fun. She's not a fun character. She's like, my ledger's red. My ledger's red. Yeah. Like that whole thing, I was just like, cool it. And plus, for someone who doesn't read comic books, like all the thing about her being like a counter-programmed spy and being like in Russia for years as like someone who like wasn't in control of their actions, like they don't explain any of that. And I don't know how anyone will watch that would be like, oh yeah, she clearly has gone through some hell. Like she burned down a hospital.
Well, I don't know Black Widow's. I read comic books here and there, not as much as you, but I don't know Black Widow's backstory. And I think I got that she had done some bad things and was now trying to atone. Is that the gist?
Yeah, I mean, that's the gist of it. I guess I was just surprised that it came across so quickly.
She is a pretty minor character to get that much time in what seems like it may be one of the biggest movies of all time, starring Black Widow.
Yeah, no, it's true. But again, like I think she is a nice counterbalance to like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, who's like so fun all the time, and she's just like, she tips the scales back a little bit in a good way, I think.
So let's talk about him. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I thought would threaten to overwhelm the movie because Robert Downey Jr. is the biggest star by a lot. Sorry, Mark Ruffalo, but Robert Downey Jr. is obviously. I was worried he was going to be Iron Man and the Avengers, and it wasn't at all.
Yeah, well, it is his story, though. I mean, he's the one that has sort of the turn. Like, he gets everyone's yelling at him the whole movie, like, all you care about is yourself. You'll never make the big hero move. And then he's the one that does sort of sacrifice everything, maybe die, like, is willing to die. And then he doesn't and saves the day. So I think it is his story, but it's all sort of in response to everything that's happening. So it doesn't seem like, we're just seeing Hawkeye because he is played by Renner rather than any good reason to have him there.
A lot of pop culture quips out of Iron Man. I thought he was the Xander of this movie.
Yeah, oh man, that's a great comparison.
Xander, of course, Joss Whedon, who I can't believe we haven't mentioned yet, who directed this movie and is the best, I guess. I think he's the best officially.
He's forever the best, I think.
And Xander's a character in Buffy who's kind of the wisecracking one, and there's a Xander in every Joss Whedon project. It's Alan Tudyk in Firefly and Fran Kranz in Dollhouse and Fran Kranz again in Cabin of the Woods, which was also awesome, by the way.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm so worried that's going to get spoiled.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And that's all you can say without spoiling it. It's really good, and just go see it.
Then shut your mouth. Shut your filthy mouth right now.
Let's jump back to the Avengers. Iron Man just throwing out pop culture references.
Yeah.
I only saw it once. What were some of them?
The Legolas. He has is it Thor, I think? He picks up who is it? he picks up Hawkeye and he's like, stick with me, Legolas, or something like that. And I was like, that's really, to say that in your movie, I was like, that's a ballsy move.
I liked when he called out Thor and Loki. I think it was just Thor. Maybe it was just Thor on being Shakespeare in the Park. I thought it was very funny because that movie was a little Shakespeare. So it is like, which is so Xander.
Self-referential, yeah.
Like a meta layer of like, they know they're in the movie, kind of.
Yeah, and that's definitely, he does that throughout. Like, does your mother know she's wearing you're wearing her drapes? Was the line.
Right.
I love the Galaga. The Galaga joke is so good.
How did that make that into the movie?
I don't know. It's so funny. It's so good.
Just like a random shot of boo, 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 boo.
I love it. Just a hot second of that. Very, very good.
Iron Man, I'd like your opinion on this. I feel like Iron Man has I don't know, how old's the first Iron Man movie at this point? 5-6 years?
Yeah.
Iron Man has become an A-level character. He was everyone knew him, he's one of the big ones, but I think he was a B-level character until that first movie. And now he's up there with, he's hanging out with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think he's on that top tier.
Well, in comics, he's always been sort of boring in some ways, I think. At least for me, when I was growing up, that was one of the first comic books I ever got, was an Iron Man comic. And I was like, it's sort of cool. But he's sort of unlikable in comics for they talk about his alcohol problem so much in comics. Like right now, it's in the main comic Invincible Iron Man, he's dealing with the fact that he got drunk during the last crossover, and it's been all about that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, it's wicked. A lot of meetings, a lot of coffee, him sipping coffee. It is to see him back to in the movies being super fun. I think that's the whole reason for his popularity is Robert Downey Jr. and the movies being fun, funny, and really well done of all the other comic book movies.
Yeah, that character could be very unlikable because he's so smug, but Robert Downey Jr., he makes it so smooth, and you're just like, where are we going?
Yeah, and it's so good, the way it's just in this movie, it's joke, and then he's like, but where do these weapons come from? Then 9 more jokes, and he's like, Hulk, let's go do this. And it's just great.
Yeah. I like that scene where the movie kind of threatens to get interesting when they're like, well, do we need weapons to preemptively battle threats we don't know about? And everyone starts arguing, oh, well, we shouldn't develop weapons. If we didn't develop the weapons, they wouldn't be attacking us. And there's one scene and the camera's kind of flowing around everyone where everyone throws out their political
real
argument.
Dutch angle shit happened right there.
And then it's immediately thrown aside because Hawkeye attacks and Hulk starts to flip out and stuff. But there is a little bit of that in the movie with arguing about, you made your billions on weapons.
Yeah. And I feel like that's just classic, and that's also classic comic book morality of just we need to talk about this for a minute until something cool happens, and then let's please forget anything that we ever said.
You could definitely there is just enough of that in the movie of depth of there's bigger things going on, both with the characters and getting along, and everyone in their own individual thing, as well as these deeper themes about weapons and what does it mean to be prepared.
Well, and I like that, actually, and I think that's going to set up for the next run of Marvel movies a lot, specifically whenever the sequel to Avengers comes out, because the whole thing is by using the Tesseract, humans are showing themselves to be ready for a new kind of war, which I thought was a cool line. And then in our first post-credit reveal, we learn of a new threat in space.
Oh my God.
And this is the sort of big spoiler. It's such a comic booky spoiler, though.
Yeah.
Anyone who hasn't read comics would be like, oh, that guy smiles weird or something.
I wish I could have a snapshot of the theater when that was revealed, because all of the comic people were audible gasp.
Yeah.
And everyone else was just like, huh? What? But, the thing about it is that, like I said, there were kind of it was a great, great movie, but there were no surprises. There were no cameos, Ant-Man didn't show up in the middle or anything like that.
Maybe he was there the whole time. He's very small.
But that was a real surprise. And I think even if you had asked me to brainstorm villains for the Avengers 2, I probably wouldn't have put Thanos on that list.
And if you remember back, maybe after Iron Man, before Thor, at Comic-Con, there was an Infinity Gauntlet on display.
Okay.
And everyone was like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? There's no way they'll do that for the first Avengers. But clearly, we've seen Thanos with the Chitauri as like sort of the overmind of them.
Are the Chitauri Skrulls? Are they from the
They're
comics?
not. They're a very small like race that
The
was
Chitauri were the aliens that all stream in and the big metal dragon things at the end of the movie.
Yeah, they were villains in like I think a Thor comic, like maybe like just one arc back in the day. Like someone created them for their story to have like a bunch of people to kill, basically. But they've never been a major thing in the Marvel universe, which I think was intentional. Because I was thinking if they weren't going to use Skrulls in this one, they would use it in the second one. Mm-hmm. But if they're going with Thanos, that's a whole different.
They're kind of, for the purposes of this movie, just generic aliens. They had almost no personality. They just wanted to conquer it. They reminded me a lot of Halo with their weaponry and their style. They were just kind of generic aliens, which was fine for the purpose of the movie.
Yeah, and I think good. Like I didn't want to know a whole bunch. We had plenty of story with all the humans.
Yeah, and Loki.
To learn a whole bunch of stuff about like with the politics of this space. I was like, it's not Phantom Menace this movie, and I have to deal with like the negotiations between the Chitauri, Thanos, and humans.
But how do you do Thanos? You get like a guy in a suit. Is it all CGI?
It looks great in the one shot they did. I think it's going to be like, he's purple and he wears green. So like the colors palette there's cool. Like I think it's just going to be that. It's all CGI, Hulk style.
Who would you cast as Thanos?
It's all in the voice. He's got to have just like sort of like one notch below Bane, like a menacing, sort of very foreign sound, like off-world sounding voice.
The person next to me who I came to the movie with, she wasn't just random.
Oh, even better.
Suggested Ron Perlman, which I thought was a great call.
That would be cool, though. He is so his voice is distinct and likable. So, it needs to be someone who like is truly evil. And they even set it up a little bit like courting death, which is in the Infinity Gauntlet, which is like the ultimate Thanos story. Was like maybe the best first sort of big crossover in the Marvel universe, and sort of set up why every 6 months in comics there's a crossover. But the reason he gets the Infinity Gauntlet, which is this, if I should explain here, is a glove that holds these different gems which allow you control over time, space, reality, soul. And
each gem is one thing.
Each gem controls one thing, and when the Infinity Gauntlet, when the gems come together, it's like the most powerful thing in the universe. And all the heroes have to come together, and they all die over the course of it. But when this guy Adam Warlock gets the Infinity Gauntlet, he brings them all back from the dead, and everything goes back to pretty much normal. And then Thanos is left alive. But the whole reason Thanos is doing it is to try to impress Death, the concept of Death, who's a woman who he's in love with. And so in the movie, when they're like, it would be like courting death, and then he turns and smiles, like, that's so in-world comic book. If he's going to try to kill Earth so that he can, like, have sex with death. Also, that's like the cover of some, like, 80s, like, hard rock album or something.
Him turning around and smirking?
Well, no, just the idea of, like, I'm going to fuck death and, like, kill everybody to do so. And so it's a lot of in-world setup, like, and I hope that's the way it goes.
Thanos would be a degree crazier than they've gone before, because now you're getting into like that Jack Kirby cosmic stuff, which is, I think people have come along. I can't believe how good Marvel has done over the past 5 or 6 years that they have made normal people come and see this incredibly nerdy movie. But if we go into Thanos territory, then we're getting even nerdier. We're going a level deeper.
Well, and I agree with you completely, because I didn't think they could pull it off.
Yeah,
like being able to keep a cast together through all these movies and then have them all be on board to do the Avengers. I was like, I don't know how they're going to pull it off. And the way they do it and the way that Joss made this movie, it really does. And like we're saying, it really pulls people along for the ride, where that level of excitement, I don't know. I think they can do it again. If they did it this time, this was the hardest trick. Mm-hmm. Like pulling people along for the next one, I think is less hard.
I do think this movie is an unprecedented accomplishment.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen a movie that is a sequel to 4 or 5 other movies, much less all those movies are pretty good. I didn't love all of them. I didn't like Iron Man 2. Captain America was just okay. But none of them are outright terrible, I guess. Yeah. Iron Man 2 is probably the worst. And this movie's awesome. Have you ever seen a movie that is a sequel to 5 other movies and is better than all of them? That's unprecedented.
Has anyone ever even attempted to do that? Like what?
I kind of looked at the Wikipedia page, as I do for everything, and I was just remembering, and I had a vague recollection of it, but in 2006, they announced, like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have 4 or 5 movies to set up the individual characters, familiarize people with each individual character, and then we're gonna, once everyone's familiar, then we're gonna have the Avengers in the faraway future of 2012, and it seemed impossible just because nothing like it had ever been done. But here we are. I saw it last night, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah. We did it. We lived long enough to really see the ultimate accomplishment of man. So I'm ready to die.
We did it.
Yeah, we made this happen. All of us, I know. I spent $10 on each movie. So
I think Iron Man was really a boon to it because they were all pretty good, but Iron Man was good enough that it broke through to the mainstream, and that was the first one of this modern set, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think that really let them, set up that this is going to be a thing and these are going to be good.
And when they chose Iron Man as the first major character to lead up to their huge franchise, I was like, oh, come on, who's it? And I think the real trick that Marvel did to win was cast Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Because that built everything, and then the script built around him allowed it to be fun and funny to a regular audience that was like, yeah, I'll buy all this crazy stuff. And then they just took very small steps building the world, and then boom, opened it up to everybody with this movie. And now I think also their other movies on their slate coming up are Ant-Man's on the slate. Doctor Strange is maybe in development.
Doctor Strange.
These movies that I'm like, who it would ever be like, oh, I gotta see this mystic doctor movie.
So let's get back to going character by character. The connective tissue for these films, going back to Iron Man 2006 was Samuel L. Jackson. This is the first time he shows up before the credits. I didn't love Nick Fury in this movie. I don't know if I'd go see a Nick Fury movie.
I would not. He's the dick.
I thought he was a little smug, right?
Yeah, the whole time. From the very beginning where, the Tesseract is there, and he's like, well, we got to get this Tesseract out of there. And the guy's like, I'm going to be the villain. And he was like, who cares? His whole attitude is like, I don't care what you're doing.
You know what was creeped me out with him was the scene with the trading cards when he has Captain America's trading cards. And then the woman who is from How I Met Your Mother, and the only speaking part that isn't one of the superheroes,
Maria Hill.
Coulson.
Yeah.
And what's her name?
Maria Hill.
And she's a character from the comics, I'm assuming. Is she the Amanda Waller of the Marvel Universe?
Yeah, pretty much. She became sort of a bigger thing during the Secret Invasion crossover, which just happened, which was Skrulls everywhere, and she was sort of became a linchpin character.
Anyway, she doesn't have a lot to do in this movie, and she says, but I think they still signed her for a 9-movie deal.
I'm sure.
They're like, we need that continuity. We need the same Maria in every Marvel movie.
Yeah. They signed the Galaga guy. They got everybody coming back.
And she said, so he has the trading cards, and Coulson, who was killed, by the way, what a send-off for Coulson. They really rewarded him for running errands throughout all the other Marvel movies.
And I'll tell you what, he may still be alive. There's no on-screen death.
That's a great point.
Nick Fury was sort of lying the whole time. I bet you, whatever geek thing we have in our hands, that he's coming back.
So Coulson is dead, and he wanted Captain America to sign his Captain America cards, which was used as a joke, and then unexpectedly becomes this very poignant thing where Nick Fury's like, I guess you never got to sign the cards, and they're covered in blood.
I was like, and especially once you realize that's a lie, it's like, so Nick, while the helicarrier's falling to Earth, is in his office putting blood on the cards.
So
and
creepy,
I know.
right?
Was it his blood? Where did he get
just
the blood?
Over the body of Aiden Coulson, gingerly dipping them all?
Yeah.
And then Maria's line, this a very unnatural line of dialogue where she's like, sir, those cards weren't on his body. They were in his locker. What? How did you know that?
They all keep their collectibles in their shield lockers. You don't want to have them out there. You never know who's going to take them. You could get damage to your polybagged comics.
But even when shit was going wrong, he was very confident about it. But in a smug way where I felt like he shouldn't be when everything was always going according to his plan.
And that's what I like it makes him unlikable is we get it, Samuel L. Jackson, you're a badass. Not everything you say and do in every movie has to be you being a badass. It's sort of confirmed. The word badass is right there next to you.
I loved when he came out and he shot that one plane down with a rocket launcher.
Unnecessary.
And then it reminded me of that scene in Avatar. They're not quite as good. I love Avatar. Where what's the general's name? Someone with a Q. Yeah. And he comes out and that helicopter's taking out and he runs off and he's shooting at the helicopter with the pistols. It takes off.
Yeah. It's one of those things where in an improv scene, someone who's hasn't done much will run out and be just kill someone for no reason, and then everyone's like, "Oh, great job!" And then the scene moves forward because he blows up one plane, and he's like, "Ha!" and then another one just takes off. So I was like, oh, so that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
We just needed to see him do something cool.
I guess especially after all those movies, like after all those post-credit scenes, like you needed to prove he was competent somewhat, especially after that opening when they just like watch Loki show up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He gets shot in that scene and then pulls the bullet out. I was like, what are we doing right now? Like, it was pretty...
What was that? How did he do that?
I bulletproof vest. I don't know. I don't know how all that works in real life, so...
Okay.
I can't really complain too much.
Probably the breakout character for the movie, the one everyone was talking about afterwards, was Hulk, right?
Definitely.
Hulk was pretty awesome. Mark Ruffalo, probably the best Bruce Banner. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's the most, like, he just seems normal. Like, it's not where, like, Ed Norton was so brooding and all this, and Eric Bana, it was sort of like he didn't sort of know what he was doing through that movie, I thought. And those movies were sort of script problem-y.
Yeah. I like, and I've gone on a record saying this before, but I don't love either of them, but the Edward Norton one is just boring. Like, it's just an average movie and not very good. The Ang Lee one is bad, but in a special kind of way. It's really swinging for the fences, and it misses, but it's swinging hard, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and like including the scene of Hulk jumping to the desert and all that, like that's cool. I think that I'm glad they did that stuff.
I like Hulk versus Army stuff. You know, that's really should be the Hulk supervillain is the entire army.
Yeah.
But this makes me wonder, I feel like they got to do another Hulk film now. He was killing it. The scene where he got two huge laughs, both of which were very funny when one, I mean, he probably got several, but the two that jump to mind are the no-look punch to Thor after the battle and when he picks up Loki. And Loki's been such a piece of shit the whole movie. It's so satisfying.
So smarmy and everything, and then it was just so well done.
Yeah.
What a great joke.
So the problem with those Hulk movies is they treat being the Hulk like it's a bad thing. Like it's not good when it happens, so it's not that fun. Here, because he gains control over it, it's just fun to watch because the Hulk's like on your side and he's just a part of the team. But can they do that for a whole Hulk movie?
I think so. It just needs to be like bigger villains than the army. Like if it's a bigger villain, then it's like okay for him to be the Hulk because he needs to.
They did that with Abomination in Hulk 2 or Incredible Hulk or whatever they called it.
Yeah, but it was so late in the movie, and like I don't know. I feel like there was so much brooding, and like Edward Norton looked miserable through that whole movie.
Yeah,
and like,
Hulk's very. I guess that's true of a lot of superheroes, particularly Marvel superheroes.
Yeah,
but Hulk's kind of a sad dude. He's got a lot of problems.
But like, I think we get it. He's been hiding in India in like every Hulk movie.
Yeah.
Like, let's just put him in Indiana or something. He can wander around Bill Bixby style.
That's the thing about the Hulk is there's been so much Hulk that it's hard to do something new. Like there's a whole series of him on the run, and it's tough to do something new. But this, because he was just fun and on your side, it felt different than other Hulk stuff.
Yeah, and it was like fun the whole time. Yeah, when he smashes Loki, and then is it puny God is the line he says? Like,
oh, I didn't even catch it.
Yeah, everyone was going crazy. Yeah, he turns and as he's walking away, he says puny God, which is.
I laughed, and like a laugh of glee, which I got several of during the movie, when he was chasing Black Widow and just like running through everything. It was cool the Hulk looked like Mark Ruffalo. Yeah. You know, this was the first time the actor playing Bruce Banner did the motion capture for the Hulk too, and I think it made a difference. The Hulk looked like Mark Ruffalo, and I thought that was cool. Yeah, and like it was a lot of times, and in the other two Hulk movies, they have these like shots where he's like angry, and then he looks sad in his eyes. In this one, he just looked angry, which I was like, that's the Hulk. It makes it much more like just without having to get into the pathos of the whole thing. It reminded me there was a terrific Hulk video game for PlayStation 2 and Xbox era, Hulk Ultimate Destruction, I believe it was called. Whoa. And it is really good. It's probably one of the best superhero games of all time. That and maybe Spider-Man 2. And it was great because kind of like Assassin's Creed has a button where you hold and you just keep running, and like whatever is in his way he will deal with, like hop over it or climb up it or whatever. The Hulk had that too. There was a button like the free run button, and you hold it and you just run, and he just smashed through things. If you get to a building, he just starts running up the building. It was a great Hulk game, and I don't know, I just feel like we've been missing out on a lot of good Hulk stuff for the past few years, and now maybe it'll be back. Well, someone asked them that because they've been planning an Incredible Hulk TV series for a while, and then now someone's like, "What about a Hulk 3?" And everyone's like, "Yeah." I think everyone at the Marvel is just like, "Yeah, whatever. Hey, everything's great." It must be so satisfying to work at Marvel and you go to the movies. And first of all, complete pandemonium for the Avengers. There's people everywhere, and then also there's Spider-Man coming out in a month. And that's coming out before the movie. It feels like they really got something going on there. Yeah, and especially I think because
they had much more control over the Avengers project because Spider-Man's still at, I think it's Sony, so they're doing it. And this is like such a win for them. I think it's just they can do whatever they want.
What do you think of that new Spider-Man movie? I'm not looking forward to it. I'll probably see it, but I'm not gonna be reporting a I'm not gonna be recording a podcast the morning after I see it.
Right.
I don't think.
Well, I don't know. Watching the trailer in front of the Avengers, I was like, oh, you know what? Lizard is such a tough villain, I think, because it's sort of like boring. And he's just going to be like the Abomination from the Hulk, sort of.
He looks like also that the Lizard, I think traditionally, and I'm going based on the 90s cartoon, is somewhat Hulk-like in that the Lizard's the alter ego, and the Dr. Kirk Connors is a pretty decent guy, but in the trailer, I wasn't getting that vibe.
Yeah, and it's all wound up with Spider-Man, with Peter Parker's parents, which is sort of a weird...
That seems like I know that was addressed, but that's a pretty minor part of the Spider-Man mythology is his parents. Like, it's all about Uncle Ben and Aunt May, traditionally.
Yeah, it's almost totally ignored. Originally it was, and then a couple storylines got into, like, that they were spies and all this stuff.
But this trailer, it's all about that. It's like, does he know about his parents? Did you tell him about his father?
Yeah.
Peter, this was never an accident. This was always part of the plan.
Which I was like, the whole point is it was an accident. It was a regular kid who got a regular nerd who got superpowers. Like, that's why everyone loves Spider-Man. So I don't know, that it could be too much. But I will say the dialogue in the trailer looks fun and funny, and Andrew Garfield looks good. The action looks great. I think the action looks better than the other ones by far.
Yeah, is it shot in 3D? Do you know?
I don't know. I would guess it is.
So did you see the Avengers in 3D?
Yeah.
I did not. I went out of my way to see it in 2D because I'm a huge anal loser.
Yeah.
And it was not, I don't generally love 3D, but it was not even shot in 3D. If I'm going to see a movie in 3D, I want it to have been shot in 3D. I think when they convert it, you can usually tell.
Yeah.
Though people don't like, very famously with Clash of the Titans was a really egregious example of that. But people don't seem to be complaining about the 3D in this.
It was pretty good. It didn't stick out. Like, it wasn't annoyingly 3D. And I sort of forgot about it and just enjoyed the movie.
Spider-Man, which is like, that's great, except it cost 150% as much.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is one of those movies, though, where I think 3D could actually add something to it because of all the motion and stuff. And
flipping
turning
around.
it into a theme park ride. I don't say that often, but I think I could see 3D enhancing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than the Avengers, which had a lot of, just people sitting around and bickering.
Yeah. Well, up until that last hour was where all the fun happened.
I know. I did think it kind of dragged in the second act about... the middle third of the movie takes place on a flying aircraft carrier, which doesn't sound... I know, I'm like, it was really boring when they were trapped. When that thing came out of the ocean, it was like, buy me, tell mommy to buy me.
Yeah.
This aircraft carrier with huge helicopter wings that fly, but they were trapped on there for a while. I was like, this is pretty good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And even when the action took place even when there was that big action scene up there, I was like, this is fun. I'm enjoying myself. But then that last 30 to 40 minutes of the movie was just nonstop fan service.
Yeah,
and it was
definitely.
glorious.
And Captain America, if you want to keep talking about characters.
Yeah, let's go to him.
Captain America, maybe one of the less liked movies was Captain America.
Yeah.
And as a character, everyone's like, oh, he's such a Boy Scout. He's not super fun. But in this movie, that sort of carries on. He's a little wooden and a little but which is his thing. But I thought the way that they did his action sequences was maybe... action-wise was sort of the biggest win because it could have been lame. But all the moves he does, when he's saving all the people in the bank in the big fight, and he does there's a bomb going off, and he does the move where he jumps with his shield up and sort of curls up behind it, straight out of the comic book. And they pulled it off and looked awesome. The move when they're on the helicarrier when someone throws a grenade.
Oh, that's the best part.
Oh, so good. He jumps in the air, grabs it, and throws it down.
He swats it midair.
Yeah, I was like, oh man,
that was great.
It was really good.
Everyone had one of those. The one for Hulk was when the pilot ejected out of the ejector seat. You still get a little Hulkverse army, and he catches the ejector seat.
Yeah.
The crowd was like, oh!
It was cool.
It was great.
Yeah.
Captain America was kind of the heart of the movie, I think. He was, everyone else was kind of above it. Like Robert Downey Jr. is cracking wise, and Thor's got his own personal vendetta. But he seemed like the most concerned about making this thing work and... with what the Avengers should be.
Yeah. Though
which is boring.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's the hard part to sort of make that work. Because they have to, which is also comic booky, they have to fight aggressively for a certain amount of time, then totally switch gears and be friends.
Yeah.
And save the day.
I liked him as and this is what made it such a great movie, I think, is that it was more than the sum of the parts, just like the team within the movie had to come together.
Man, you got it.
But Captain America, kind of boring, but as an element of the Avengers, I liked him. As an ingredient in the chemistry, I thought he was great.
Yeah, and especially as the leader and everything, like the main three Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, in comics are sort of not the most exciting characters to me. Like they're very like staid and stoic in their ways, and they don't change ever at all about anything. And then in this movie, they gave it enough stuff that like they change a little bit, and then the way they interact is like they don't like each other and they do, and like when they do, I was there with them, which in the comic books I don't, because they do that all the time. They split up those three, the sort of trinity of the Marvel universe, and then they come back together, and I always don't buy it, but in this movie I thought I did.
It's interesting how the Justice League is the number 1 through 5 guys, but the Avengers aren't necessarily that. Like Spider-Man, I'm sure he's been on the Avengers or whatever, but he's not there all the time. It's kind of, it's not the most famous guys in Marvel.
Yeah. Well, and like the original Avengers, like Ant-Man and Wasp, 2 characters whose powers are getting tiny.
Yeah.
Were like original Avengers.
I saw the cover for Avengers 1 and, the old one, and I thought it was so funny because it's, you got Iron Man, who's still in that old Iron Man suit, which is like just a big tin can.
Yeah.
And Hulk, strongest dude on the planet. Thor, this god, he's swinging his hammer. Loki's there, he's another god. And then you have Ant-Man riding an ant into battle. It's like, oh, we're good. I think we got this one, Ant-Man.
Yeah, it's a shame that he didn't make his triumphant entrance on whatever little insect was flying around.
Yeah, really hard to make that. I don't know, maybe for the second one, maybe we could get some Wasp in there.
Yeah, well, if you're going to have Ant-Man, if you're going to have... It's like the brownies in Willow. It's like, let's just murder them.
That was the Kevin Pollak character?
Yeah.
Like, he's like always on a green screen being
that iconic Kevin Pollak character, Brownie number 2.
Did we go through everyone? Hawkeye, I don't think we talked about.
Or Thor.
Okay, so let's do Hawkeye first.
Yeah.
Hawkeye was cool. Here's my deal with Hawkeye.
That's such a great... Hawkeye was cool, but not radically cool. Let's move on.
Hawkeye ran out of arrows. I feel like that's got to be the number one thing you do if you're Hawkeye is make sure you bring enough arrows.
Gotta overstock.
That seemed like a huge oversight. And also, he's surprised he's run out of arrows. Like, he isn't even aware that he's going to run out of them.
Well, I think that's good. That's Joss Whedon being like, everyone else has people shoot stuff out of like in Walking Dead when Herschel's like shoots his shotgun like 50 times and never reloads or anything. I think his thing is like, let's have him run out, because no one ever does that, and it would make sense. He's in the middle of a battle. He only has a finite amount of arrows.
I like that they worked in this. Must be from the comic books. That he has like a thing on his bow so he can dial in what kind of arrow he wants.
That's not. I think that's something. I mean, I don't remember seeing it in the comics. I think it's because they really feature that a lot. He's pressing his buttons really.
But they never like stop and talk about it. It's like, if you get this, here's something that's happening. We're going to show you. If you get it, great. If it's a neat little detail. If not, that's cool too.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. I thought that was something that Mission Impossible did a lot too. There were like toys in Mission Impossible, and then they just show them working. They're like, you figure it out. Whereas I feel like a lesser movie will often say, I've got this, what's that thing you keep doing on your arrow? And he has to explain it. But here, just visually, they were able to tell it.
Yeah, I guess they cut the rotating quiver monologue from the script. It's a shame. It's right out of Shakespeare.
I think there's a reason that Hawkeye, all these other guys go off and have their own adventures. I think there's a reason Hawkeye is primarily associated with the Avengers and not his own solo title.
Yeah, well, again, in the Marvel Universe right now, in the comics, he's getting a lot of his own play.
Like, because he's in the movie.
Yeah. But like for years, they sort of keep him around. I don't know. He's, again, never been my favorite character, but he was a guy in the comics who was a villain for a long time. He was a criminal, became a hero, and is like sort of brash and does whatever he wants. So that's sort of like a modern thing to do.
What's up with all the bow and arrow toys? Both this, Hunger Games, and also Brave. Prominent bow and arrows.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like a more fun gun.
I guess. You can definitely show it in a GRP. Like, you couldn't have You couldn't give Hawkeye just a pistol and he's just shooting dudes.
Just
point
shooting
blank.
shooting someone really well in the
If
face.
he like shot Black Widow, that would not have been nearly as fun.
yeah.
You know what they show him doing is twice before he ever shoots the arrow, they show him taking out the bow and like he like flicks it and it all expands real quick.
Yeah, he flicks the bow in the middle of his line like 3 times in the movie, and is like, "Let's go, click, do this," and it's like, "All right,
You know what? Shoot some arrows before you do that the next time.
Right, exactly. Drama school dropout Hawkeye.
Yeah, I surprised they used him because there's obviously already so many characters, but they were like, no, Hawkeye's a major part of the Avengers.
I like having the 2 tiers though. You have your main 4, and then you have these other guys that are important and they do stuff, but like they're not the ones you came there to see.
Yeah, that's true. But they didn't drag down the movie. They were
Not at all.
How long was that movie? It was long, right?
2 hours and 23 minutes.
Really?
That's without trailers.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It was. I know it was early when I got there and late when I left.
Yeah.
It felt very long. Or I'm sorry. It didn't feel long at all.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of what I just said.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't feel long at all. The opposite. I could have watched it. I could have gone on for another 2 hours. Get Vision up in there.
I hope they do that. In the next one, like what characters would you want to see for the sequel?
I don't know.
Because it depends a little bit on the movies they release, but like what Avengers?
Well, let's finish up the current Avengers.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to talk about the future. We just didn't get to Thor and Loki.
Yeah.
Let's combine those two together.
Yeah. They're brothers.
I thought Thor was, I think besides Iron Man, I think the best, and now the Avengers, besides Iron Man and the Avengers, Thor was the best of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I like Thor quite a bit. I thought it was very good.
Yeah, it was a good movie. Also, another one where they made it really fun and funny. Like when they first announced that it was going to be, half the movie was going to be in Asgard, I was like, oh man, Asgard's the worst.
Yeah.
Everyone's sitting around just like proclaiming stuff to each other. But they really made it work, and when they were on Earth, like it was really good. And I love the sort of call out to Jane Foster in this.
Oh, that's the Natalie Portman character?
Natalie Portman, yeah.
Yeah, I guess she was busy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
they're like
Coulson, right?
No, it's Samuel L. Jackson. Nick Fury's talking to Thor, and he's like, or is it Coulson?
I think
Maybe
it might
you're
be
right. You're right.
Coulson.
It is Coulson. Then Nick Fury comes in a second. Coulson's like, "Don't worry, she's in an observatory. She has a great grant. She's going to be up there for a long time. It's very safe. She's going to be making some money, eating great lunches, like all organic
Private
food.
plane.
It's like, all right, we get it. She's safe. And then they have this weird. There's this
Where's
weird.
that movie?
Yeah, right. Her just doing some very sweet science. And then they have this moment where Thor's like really examining his life, and they just cut away. I was like, I thought for sure there's going to be like a big joke at the end. But it's one of the only scenes where it ends on this sort of like Thor looking out from the helicarrier being like, man, shit's all fucked up.
I thought Thor's great audience applause moment was when he's waiting for the hammer for a second, and then it finally gets there right in time, and he just uppercuts Hulk. I need a gif of that immediately.
Oh, that was the way it's slow-moed right on the Hulk, like
Right.
knockout punch style. Like that was definitely like...
The Thor Hulk fight was one of the, I don't know, God, that movie was good.
Yeah.
So much good stuff in that movie.
Yeah, and there's so many good fights, especially like the Black Widow Hawkeye fight. I was like, I don't need to see this. Like, just tell me they fought and show like
I
a
kinda
little
forgot that
bruise.
they fought.
Yeah,
It was brief.
Yeah.
But that's where she knocks some sense into him.
Right.
I thought also the Thor in the prison plummeting was a cool scene.
yeah, and him
like a
landing.
cool device, and like, I don't know, it made me uncomfortable. I was like, I was like, how is he gonna get out of this?
Yeah.
This is really tough. He has no direction he can go in. He's all lost. I was really
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah. Oh, you were genuinely concerned for your buddy?
I was
Your
like-
buddy Thor.
Well, the movie also did that when the portal opens and what are they, Chitauri?
Chitauri, yeah.
They start pouring through that. I was like, how are they gonna do
Yeah.
When 2 more of those dragon worms came
Yeah.
out, I was like,
Oh, they barely got the first one.
they can never win.
Yeah.
They're never gonna be able to.
These guys are never going to win. And to think, if you walked out of the movie, then you would have never
I wanted
known.
the movie to end when Thor hits Captain America. He like jumps up and he hits Captain America's shield. I wanted the movie to just immediately lights up. Just
Yeah.
that is the end of the film.
In your face. Think about what you've just seen. Yeah. Yeah, but I think
I thought Loki was great.
Loki,
too.
yeah, as a villain, like good, and the way that when Thor, because Thor is such like an innocent, like, brother, let's get over this fight and move on. And he's like, yeah, and then he stabs him, and like the turnabouts where I thought were really good for him.
That was very Shakespearean. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, Thor's thing. It's certainly in the movies. I couldn't quite understand. Thor, can you kill him? What's
Yeah.
up with that?
Well,
'Cause
Loki.
he stabbed him, and I was like, is that a big deal? No,
Well-
it's not a big deal.
Loki even says, like, can gods die? Let's find out. Like,
Right,
I
yeah.
feel like maybe they don't know.
Which is interesting. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool. But he stabs him, and it's like a big moment. You're like, oh no, is everything okay? And it's complete. And Loki is completely unaware that that didn't matter at all.
Well, yeah, and it's like a tiny knife.
Yeah,
it's like.
Well, I thought maybe it was an Asgard knife of star steel.
Yeah,
or something.
Star steel is only in certain. No, I'm just kidding. That's a made up thing. Yeah,
I know Loki's the villain from Avengers #1, the actual comic book. So it made to stay accurate, it made sense to use him. But even if he wasn't, I thought he was a great choice. I thought Tom Hiddleston?
Hiddleston?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, believe it or not, I've never seen one of his non-Avengers movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're.
Well, he's is he Sherlock or is he in Sherlock? No. Which one? He's in some sort of BBC thing, right?
Benedict, you haven't seen Sherlock?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, Sherlock is
I know,
good.
it's so good.
I've
been waiting. I know.
It's good.
Yeah.
He is not in it. The guy that is Sherlock, Benedict Cumberbatch, who's great, and you're going to love after you watch Sherlock.
Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Does it get more British than that name?
I know, but he's...
Benedict Cumberbatch.
He is, because of Sherlock, he's going to be in everything. He's in The Hobbit. He's in Star Trek 2. He's in something else coming out. He's the new thing. He's great.
British it boy.
And as soon as you see it, you'll understand why he's so good on that show. So, what were we talking about? Thor.
Loki.
Thor 2 is a movie. So let's talk about where does Marvel go now? Thor 2, I guess you're doing Thor 2, Captain America 2, Iron Man 3. Is that right?
I mean, that would make sense. I know they're doing other movies, though. They've talked about Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy.
I don't even know Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's like Space Avengers, sort of. A lot of different aliens come together to save the different parts of the universe, but in much the same way the Avengers come together.
Edgar Wright's been talking about doing Ant-Man for a long time.
Yeah, and I think he wrote the script that that one's I think the furthest along. I mean, I'm not sure. It's all speculation, really.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool because Edgar Wright, who did, he did an amazing horror movie with Shaun of the Dead, did an amazing action movie with Hot Fuzz, my understanding is Ant-Man's supposed to be funny too, and both of those examples are like both those examples, it's a great horror movie and it's a great comedy. Same with Hot Fuzz. So I'd like to see him do another genre. I think he could do it with superhero movie too.
Yeah, and make that really fun. And Ant-Man is not, as a kid, no one's like, I want to be Ant-Man.
Yeah,
I want to hang out with bugs. He does spend a lot of time harnessing bugs as chariots.
Even the atom can shrink down to a molecule size and rearrange DNA and ride in the phone lines and stuff. But Ant-Man is just not small enough to actually be incredible.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the atom riding in phone lines, they do that trick way too many times. In any comic book, he's like, I'll just take the phone. It's like, shut up. Just fly there or something. And also, with cell phones, I think he's going to really have a hard time getting around.
So I don't understand if Marvel is supposed to, if they keep, now this is it, this is the set of characters, and we just keep exploring these guys, or do we have to keep adding more, like Ant-Man or the Guardians? There's no obvious next step, there's they got Thor, and they got the big ones out there. There's no, with the exception of Ant-Man, there's no obvious next person that's obviously missing from the roster.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't think they can do Thor 2. We've seen
They're
Loki.
doing it though.
No, I don't think they can do it in the same way. Is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do another Loki thing. Thor has to be fighting someone else.
It must be Thanos because Captain America is not going to go fight Thanos.
Yeah. Well, no, I think I don't know. I guess I've always thought the villain they introduce at the end of the Avengers has to come back to fight the Avengers. I don't think they would have Thanos then go and fight Thor and then be done with it.
No. I'm just saying if he'll get further exposure to him.
Yeah.
Because he'll be out in the cosmos. Chilling in Jack Kirby land.
Yeah. Well, it's rumored that Guardians of the Galaxy is on their slate. If they do that, then they're setting up a space Avengers that might not get along very well with Earth Avengers, and then maybe they'll all have to come together and fight Thanos. Possible.
The obvious thing to do would be to let's get Wolverine up in there. Let's get Spider-Man in there. But I think that's very complicated, as I understand it, because they're all owned by different studios. That's just a non-starter issue.
Yeah, contractually, so as long as Sony and is it Paramount that does the X-Men movies?
I guess Fox does it.
Oh, Fox, yeah. As long as they keep making those movies, they keep getting the licenses back.
Is that the rule?
Yeah.
What a crazy rule.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they have. They have to pay and everything, but as long as they don't let it die.
I believe that's the excuse for the Fantastic Four movie, the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie from the 90s, is that they just needed to make a Fantastic Four movie to retain the rights, which is what led to that terrible, terrible movie.
And the following two terrible movies.
Yeah, were those... I don't know. They don't have an excuse for those.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, they were keeping the licenses, but to what end?
Are the Fantastic Four movies owned by whatever studio did the Avengers?
I think that one maybe is. No, it's not Marvel. Marvel Studios only started with Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. That's a shame. It could be cool to get the Fantastic Four up in there, Galactus or Silver Surfer.
Yeah, but they blew those. Those characters are just blown from that second movie. Was so bad.
I didn't even see the second one. I saw the first one. I thought it was bad. Maybe I did see the second.
I
saw the first.
The second one is truly, it's on par with like the Punisher movies. It's like, terrible.
Man, I have some sad news for you. I actually love the first Punisher movie.
The Punisher, the Thomas Jane,
not the Dolph Lundgren one, which is the true first Punisher movie.
Yeah.
Which I didn't hate when I was a kid. I don't know. It's probably terrible though. The Thomas Jane one though, I like that movie.
What's good about it is Thomas Jane clearly is like so happy to be doing it. You can see, as gritty as he is, you can see underneath he's just like, oh yeah, I'm saying these lines.
It's a great 90s action movie. It's just a good old everyone's getting shot, squibs, people shaking their bodies as they're riddled with bullets. I love that shit, and it's that kind of movie. I actually even watched the second one with I can't remember. Well, McNulty was the bad guy. He was Jigsaw. I can't remember who played the Punisher. Ray Wise?
Yeah, it was someone. Well, because I know that because Thomas Jane put up a blog post when he didn't get cast, and in the blog post he was like talking about his like actual depression. Like he released this publicly that he wasn't going to get to play the Punisher in the next movie. He was like begging for this job back.
I really do, Thomas Jane. If you're listening, I loved you in the first Punisher. I wish they had brought you back. One of the worst lines of dialogue though is the end of that movie where. Rebecca Romijn is in that movie, and she's, I guess, the love interesty person, and he's leaving, and he says, look for me in the papers, and she's like leaving, and she says, what section? And he goes, the obituaries. But what section? Who would respond that way? What an obvious setup.
Yeah, the arts and entertainment. I'm opening a small movie theater.
I just don't know. I mean, and the Avengers is such a success, and the past 6 years of Marvel movies are such a success that it's just going to be hard to. Do we just start over? Do we just do them all again and see you in 2018 for Avengers 2?
I think they're going to keep Iron Man as the backbone, and sort of like keep that going because those are fun and everyone like seems to like that, and then keep popping in with other like setups for the other movies, and then do Thor 2, maybe not do Captain America 2. But then start adding these other characters, and then eventually be like, all right, what do we want to put in the next Avengers movie? Throw them in, fight Thanos in space, Infinity Gauntlet, everything dies, we all die, end of the world.
That's pretty much when I want the world to end if they stop releasing these movies anyway. I'd be totally satisfied if that was the end of the universe, was the last Marvel Avengers crossover movie.
Did you stick around for the second post-credit scene?
I did. It was very funny. Got a huge laugh out of the audience.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Not a word of dialogue.
Yeah, it was funny. But like after that whole movie, that's very, very funny to do that scene.
Yeah.
I guess the other exciting nerd question is now what happens with Joss Whedon? Joss Whedon has been nerd superhero. Everyone loves him. I'm a little late to the wagon. I didn't watch Buffy and Angel when they were on the air. I didn't watch Firefly when it was on the air either. But I watched Dollhouse, which is good. Dollhouse gets good at the end.
Does it? See, I didn't watch Dollhouse.
The first season is bad. But then they did a DVD-only episode for some weird production reason in between the first two seasons. And it takes place in the distant future, and what the actions in the first season have destroyed the world. And then the second season goes back to the present, and it gets much more interesting because it's about how what they're doing is going to eventually lead to the destruction of humanity.
Oh, wow.
That's like an undercurrent of the whole thing. And then after it got canceled about halfway through the second season, I guess they were just like, well, they had this 5-year plan. They were like, all right, let's do it all in the next 4 episodes. And the last half of the second season, that show is awesome. It's crazy.
That's cool.
There's 5 seasons worth of ideas in these last 5 or 6 episodes. So it's worth sticking around to the end of Dollhouse, which I only say because when I say everything Joss Whedon does is great, you have to defend Dollhouse usually.
Yeah, right.
There's Firefly, Buffy, Angel, Dr. Horrible, Serenity, Cabin in the Woods, and now he's made what is going to be one of the biggest movies of all time. Seems to be universally loved already. Kind of gets his do whatever you want ticket.
I think he got it with. Also Cabin in the Woods has been doing really well.
Yeah, Cabin in the Woods. I think it was sitting on the shelves for years, and it's doing not as well as the Avengers, obviously, but it's doing pretty well for a movie that doesn't star any famous people. and except Thor is in it.
Yeah.
And obviously people have really responded to that movie, and even it's really well liked. I think it will be discussed for a long time.
To have both those, Cabin Woods and Avengers, doing well right now, I think he can do whatever he wants, and like a long time coming, because like Serenity is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, Serenity's so good.
Such a good movie.
I think the Avengers, it's about as good as the Avengers. I'd say I love Serenity.
I do too. Like, it's so funny, so smart. All that Reaver stuff.
And also, I've always been confident about the Avengers because Serenity's a movie that services like 8 characters. It's a similar dynamic where like they don't, they have to get together. They don't have to get together, but they, they have to learn to get along to fight this common threat. And every character is serviced in that movie.
And the plot is really complex in Serenity. They explain all the continuity from Firefly in the movie while it's happening. But
it's not overwhelming at all.
Not
at all.
It's
very fun, and anyone could pick it up and not be lost. It's great. It's a great movie.
And I think now and that's very hard to do. I think that's maybe the hardest thing that Joss does well in all of his movies, particularly Avengers, is balance all of this like exposition and storytelling with like just like fun moments that everyone's like, you don't know that like you're eating your vegetables sort of by accident.
Yeah.
They're all mixed in with the meat. So it's like you're just so satisfied and you didn't realize that you got your vitamins.
But the thing about Joss has been, probably since the cancellation of Angel, which was canceled very suddenly. Buffy was on for 7 years, and I think ended because Sarah Michelle Gellar didn't want to do it. It had probably run its course. But Firefly was canceled suddenly. Dollhouse was always struggling. And, he's kind of been associated with having to fight against the system and, like, making these amazing things that didn't get the recognition. But now he's on the opposite side of that. He's being widely recognized. And I'm just so excited to see what he does with that power.
Maybe he's gonna turn into Michael Bay.
I can think of very few directors whose work I've enjoyed as much uniformly. Like no misses.
Yeah.
Across everything.
But what if this is it? What if from now on he's going to become like the McG of movie making? Everyone's going to be like, oh, Joss Whedon, and this is the moment right here when it turns.
He'd still have an amazing career, and it's a shame. Yeah. It's a shame that Serenity was like 5 or 6 years ago, and his next thing can't be Serenity 2 because everyone is scattered to the wind at this point.
Yeah,
he'd have to like cancel Castle, but
that's maybe it's the kind of thing where he could just like turn the world if he believes in it that much. He could go back and do like a whole new series of Firefly building towards Serenity. Like I think he has that power to do literally anything he wants.
I think they should get the Serenity cast into Avengers 2. I think Mal and Jane and River Tam should all become Avengers. When they were in space for that last scene, I half expected Green Lantern to show up.
Yeah.
It looked like Green Lantern. I was ready. I was prepared for anything. Get Jonah Hex in there.
Yeah.
I think they should make one big movie. Every summer, they should only make one movie, and it should be the Avengers. And just the Men in Black are in there. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, he's in the movie. Well, all the characters are in one movie. It's called The Avengers. It's the only movie released all summer, and it's 25 hours long. Joss Whedon directs it.
Yeah. Well,
that's my pitch for the future.
This movie is so successful, all movies will eventually take place in the Marvel Universe. I believe. Even like The Vow just came out. That's going to be in the Marvel Universe. Coming down the road, everything is going to be. You'll just see, they'll be talking about something very dramatic and serious about to make out, and then you just see Thor going by in the background. Before we go, I want to talk about Comic Book Club, because I had one of your co-hosts, Alex, was on this show previously when we talked about the new DC 52. I want to say it was like episode 13 or 14. It was a while ago now, and I don't think we got to talk about the show that you guys do, which is great. Oh, awesome.
What is Comic Book Club?
Comic Book Club is a weekly talk show about comic books and all sort of geek things. It's been going for 5 years now. We're on the Nerdist Network now, and we tape it at Pianos in New York, and we have a ton of great guests come down.
And it's hosted by you and Alex Zalbin and Pete. I can't remember his last name.
Pete LePage.
Pete LePage, and it's great. It's so fun to do, and you've had some really great guests since you got on.
Just since we've been on Nerdist, we just had Bill Hader on. We had Chris Hardwick and Chris Gethard. We have Scott Adsit and Frank Thierry coming up next week to talk about a bunch of random stuff.
And it's great because these people are like, these people are into comic books. It's great to hear Bill Hader, who's obviously so funny, but you don't know. It's great to hear that he's like a real comic book fan of the way he, his take on it and the way he consumes them and how it fits into his life.
Yeah, he was talking on the show about how he's gotten all the SNL, other writers and stuff to read comic books all on their iPads because it's so easy. So they'll finish their meeting and then be like, so what'd you think of Avengers Initiative or like Lock and Key or whatever?
So it's really cool. Where can people check that out?
You can check it out at the YouTube patreon.com/nerdist. Our new episodes go up every Wednesday. There's episodes about 20 minutes. The full podcast is an hour if you want to listen to the whole show.
So there's a podcast too. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably maybe listen to others. Maybe
like
you got time
podcasts.
You have a tolerance for listening to people. In
A tolerance, you just have a nice tolerance for it.
You've been listening to this for about an hour, so you probably could stand a little bit more.
Clearly, you're bedridden. No significant relationships in your life.
So that is Comic Book Club. It's on the iTunes store, I'm sure.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Anytime, man. It's great.
All right. That's what I got for this week. I am happy to report that since recording with Justin, I have seen the Avengers a second time, and it was still totally awesome. I regret that I forgot to bring up Powers Booth. Powers Booth is in this movie, people. That's how good this movie is. The presence of Powers Booth isn't even in the top, 40 best parts. That's how good The Avengers is. The only bad thing that came out of this movie is that it made $800 million, and I don't know if Joss Whedon's ever going to make a TV show again. But everything else about this movie was great. Everything that came out of it was great, including this episode. Thank you again to Justin, and thank you guys for listening. Some business. The opening of the show, I am now talking to other people and recording this for me. This week's comes from Richard. Thank you, Richard. If you would like to hear your voice at the beginning of a Jeff Rubin show, oh my God, can you even imagine? What a prize. Email me the recording, leave out the sound effect, just send it to jeffrubin@jeffrubinshow.com. That's correct, jeffrubin@jeffrubinshow.com. So the whole thing reads as jeffrubinshow.com. Record yourself, send it to me, I'll drop in the sound. If you have a picture you want me to include, send that with your email to new Jeff Rubin Show every Tuesday. I said that like it was news. That's different. But, I'll remind you. I set up all these social media outlets just to remind you when there are new episodes out. I'm on Facebook. I have a Tumblr, jeffrubin.com, where, by the way, you can sign up for email alerts about new episodes. I'm talking old school email alerts. There's also a Twitter @Jeff Rubin Show and youtube.com/Jeff Rubin. Let's talk more next week. Okay, bye.